Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So people, I want to talk about falling off the dietary wagon. And no, I am not off that wagon right now. I'm clean, which is why it's a perfect time to talk about it, right? Because it gets it in my mind where I know what tools I can have in the event that I do falter. So no, I'm fabulous, flirty, and 30. No, not quite. But anyway, I'm well, but I do want to discuss this because I think it's a really good one. This is by Laura Dawn. I don't know if you're familiar. She has a couple of books. And of course, I will share this in the description of the video. She actually has 15 tips to get back on track when you've fallen off the wagon, the dietary wagon. And I'm only going to share 5 and do it in 3 parts. She's actually referred to as happy and raw. What? A raw vegan in our midst. And I don't just mean JBV, but raw and looking at what? Was that a compliment as I'm learning to love myself? Why, yes. Yes, it was. All right, let's get in. So it's really cute pictures in this article, and she has some cool little side things you can use too. So it reads, and it's literally called Happy and Raw, if you want to go to happyandraw.com. Fallen off the wagon? Here's my 15 tips to get you back on track when you feel like you're stuck in a food rut. I normally advise people away from all or nothing diet mentality. I usually say that it's not about being on or off the proverbial wagon, but rather finding a balanced lifestyle approach that is sustainable, not too rigid, nourishing, and aligns with the long-term vision of your health goals. Thinking in terms of on or off, especially when confining yourself to a dietary box, when you call yourself raw, for example, and then eat something that's not raw, it can induce feelings of guilt and shame and can cause extreme swings in eating behavior. And I so agree. To see the grace in all foods, but then choose the foods that best serve you is the best mindset ever, right? And I vary on that, but it's my preference to think that way. So it says, this past week, however, I got reacquainted with off the wagon, while the proverbial wagon continued in the direction of my health goals. So always that bigger picture, right, of what you're ultimately heading for, though along the way, your wagon might hit a rock or fall into a crevice or whatever, right, without me on it. This experience gave me a renewed recollection of what it's like to be feeling great and then take a sharp turn left off the dietary path that aligns with my goals and values towards food that make me downright unhappy. God, you're not kidding. My level of shortness, impatience, etc. that comes to haunt me when I get off my food plan, it's horrific. You know, I kind of reference that as my mistress, right? In the sense that food is so jealous. It's such a jealous lover that it insists that you give it your undivided attention. And that seems to be for all food, but some is not as lovely as others. So it says the irony is that in the moment, these hyper palatable foods, what a great word, hyper palatable. My gosh, how many was that? Hyper palatable. 6 syllables. That's a great word. Wow. These hyper palatable foods are what we think we want because we have some unconscious belief eating them will make us happy. Old behaviors, old habits, old memories. I mean, even for my husband, he'll ask me to get him something. He's so excited. And then he'll be like, that was an old memory. Don't ever let me eat that again. I so get it. Okay, yes. It has indeed been many years since I've experienced off the wagon, and it's amazing how easily it can be to get hooked all over again, especially for those of us who are familiar with food addiction, a hyperlink, and habitual patterns of chronic overeating. Hello. I really appreciate this girl. And I'll have to look more into it another time because I promised I would be in bed by 10 o'clock tonight, which will be a miracle. And that even if I lie there for hours, I will stay in that bed and simply pray. Because honestly, last night, 2 o'clock, night before, almost 4 o'clock, I can't be my best self. I know you're thinking, Jules, you look fresh to me. You got good energy. Yeah, but it's a lot of work to act like this, and it's no good for my body. If we looked closely, you'd see my ankles are a little swollen. It's for circulation, right? Because my body doesn't have recovery time. You can tell me all day long the importance of sleeping. I get it. But tonight, I actually want to get it. So anyway, let's keep going. One thing I do want to see, so she says, it has indeed been many years since I've experienced off the wagon, and it's amazing how easily it can be to get hooked all over again. You know, that's what Tanny Raw, dare I say, my good friend Tanny Raw, and if you don't know her, look her up on every social media platform for health. Tanny Raw always says, once is a slip, twice is a habit. Do not be going twice. That's why I try really hard not to miss Jules Blessed Vegan twice, because my life is busy enough to justify never coming back. All right, smarty pants, don't say you wouldn't miss me. So yeah, I so get that, especially for those of us with food addiction or habitual patterns of chronic overeating. I appreciate that. But rather than getting down on myself, freaking out and turning to more food to make me feel better, like my old self would have done, I love that, I used what I've learned in these past 10 years to get unhooked and back on that wagon. ASAP, which for those of you who don't know stands for as soon as possible. This has been a public service message because I know, or forgive me, I now know, and I use this as an opportunity to remind myself once again that struggling with food is not a place I want to be. Girl, you ain't whistling Dixie. After all, I am human and I never claim to be perfect. Unlike me, I claim to be perfect all the time. And in fact, embracing my imperfections is actually one of the top tips that help me get back on track and get a grip before I let myself spiral down the familiar slippery slope any further. But it says slippery slop. Do you think that that is a typo? Or do you think she's familiar with my pig and the slop that I feed Luna? I think it's slippery slope. Anyway, here are 15 tips to get back on the wagon when you've fallen off that dietary wagon. I am only going to share 5, and I would love to share 5 and 5 again in a 3-part series. Here's part 1. All right, so how did I, someone who writes and talks about food addiction and works with chronic overeaters on a daily basis, get back on track? Let me share with you my exact methods that help steer me back in the direction of my health goals to a place that feels balanced, healthy, and even a little more sane. You know, that's why I'm doing this while I'm well, because then I can just click into these videos to remind myself if indeed I get off track, which of course we know inevitably will happen. Again, it's not that we fall, it's that we dare to get back up, right? So tip number 1, make a plan and write it down. Again, I can hardly go through things anymore without hearing Tanny Raw. And I've talked to you guys about the Tanny Raw Reset, the 28 days of magnificent with a minimum of 35 hours of live content. Phenomenal. And that reset is about to close. So I don't know when you're watching this, but today is May the 4th be with you, May 4th. And the card's probably closing May 5th. Which is Cinco de Mayo. Why don't you make it into a fiesta, my friends, and sign up for the Tanny Raw Reset? Arriba, arriba, right? You might want to do that. Just tell your people, do you want me to be my best self? Give me $300. Lucky for you, I'll take $1 off. It's only $2.99. Pay that $2.99. Change your life in 1 month. Hurry your fastest, seriously. And if for some reason you can't get in, maybe by God's grace, you could write me and I could manipulate the stars of the universe and see if they'll fit you in. I kind of know some underground ways of getting people in at the last minute. It might be a false brag, but maybe by God's grace. So why don't you try for that if you haven't? So anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because she majored in teaching you how to create your life plan. She majored in showing you how to use that target where in the middle all things are fine, with the next ring caution, if you will, and with that outer ring, yeah, that's a no. You know what I mean? She just gives you tools for every aspect of your life. It's phenomenal. Okay, so hers says, make a plan and write it down. Writing it down as a teacher, I know how concrete that is. Seeing is one thing, speaking is another, hearing is another. Tangibly writing it down is another way of cementing that understanding, that plan, that goal. Okay? So planning provides some structure, and when things start to feel out of control, a concrete action plan can and does go a long way towards helping you get back on track. Like that's what Tammy says all the time. She's like, you know what? The plan is, let me think. Is it the plan is steady when you're feeling shaky? It's something very similar to that. That plan is always there for you when you dare to lose out until you go back and say, oh yeah, plan. I see you. I hear you. The plan will not change. It's steadfast. Okay. I usually recommend a 1-week plan, but you can adjust your plan to suit your needs. My plan included several classes I would attend during the upcoming week, including a yoga class and a dance class. Like for me, I would add an Overeaters Anonymous meeting, just for support. Certainly another prayer, an extra lap around the track, the daily mass online, like all those kind of things are things that might support you that you accidentally let go. I talk about the urge jar, right? And adding some more urges. Like my primal brain knows when I make a promise and don't keep it. And there should be even more urges in here. I might have a meeting with my monkey mind, Coconut, and we might discuss what's been going down lately and how Coconut might be more supportive. So what is it in your 1-week plan if you want? I mean, I totally get that with the whole 1 day at a time idea. You don't want to go out too far, right? Anyway, I also plan for taking a morning walk or bike ride. That's tip number 10. We'll get to that. Try to make a realistic plan, one that is simple, clear, and not overwhelming. I know I've been out of my routine and not meditating lately. Yeah, this is me. Things will be going really well, and all of a sudden, I'll suddenly look around and realize I dropped all the tools that were working. When you're taking, dare I say, antibiotics, and no, I haven't taken them in a really long time, but all of a sudden you're feeling well on day 4 or day 7, and they're 10-day antibiotics, so there's no follow through, and it's designed that you don't miss a dose, right? And that's a poor example for people who aren't into antibiotics, but that's what came to mind. Okay. I know I've been out of my routine and not meditating lately, so instead of planning to incorporate 1 hour of meditation in the morning, which would be ideal, I wrote down 10 minutes. Like, that's so realistic. You can't really go back to where you were at your height when you realize you're going to have to build back up to it, right? Now, I'll accidentally do that. Like, I haven't walked on the track, and then I'll get out on the track and I'll expect to do, 12 laps all at once. Pull it back, small increments. Now, the beauty of that is you may catch up much quicker than you would have, but smaller increments, right, to get to where you were before. So instead of planning to incorporate 1 hour, I would do 10 minutes because it's more realistic considering that I have what I have going on and it feels less overwhelming to get back into the habit. Amen. Number 2, get back into the groove. Personally, I thrive with a routine structure for day-to-day living. Making a plan for the following week and writing it down helps me to focus on getting back into my groove. I notice I do really great when I follow my morning routine. Wake up, meditate, go for a walk or bike ride, shower, make a smoothie, write an article, answer emails. When I have a routine, I spend less time thinking about it and more time actually doing it. Oh, isn't that so true? How much nonsense takes up residency in our brain? So often I am talking more than doing. And my husband will be like, how come that took you 27 and a half hours? Wasn't it supposed to be like an hour and 15 minutes? Residency in my brain. Sure, I'm doing things that clearly I didn't, right? Okay, number 3. Try to identify food triggers. And this is just smart. Now, for someone in Overeaters Anonymous, they might be, well, I wrote my food triggers, years ago when I first decided, you know what, we change, we evolve, we change, we grow, even our taste buds change. Certainly, again, with the amount of media coming at us, right? They say 6,000 to 8,000 visuals a day of different things. This will change. What triggers you changes. It certainly changes for me. And even when I'm clean, I can accidentally go for broke and binge on super healthy food, but in excess. So you just never know what's going to trigger you. And when that trigger comes about, it's hard to say why. Like, did it come about because I chose to intermittent fast today when I had a whole bunch of things going on? I haven't eaten for 15 hours. When I got home, my food wasn't ready and I freaked out and overate. Like, you really have to see. Because for me, any food can become a binge food, honestly. What triggers us to eat and overeat can oftentimes be very challenging to detect. There's so many factors that play into our relationship with food, including mindless eating habits, emotional food dependencies, the people we usually eat with, the time of day, the weather outside, to name a few. In other words, anything can become the excuse you need to get off your plan, right? And by you, I mean me. I so get this. Each one of those could be an individual talk, honestly. For me, the smallest change, and I try not to be a control freak. I try not to be overly hypervigilant, but sometimes the smallest change in my program can just throw me into a tizzy. Try to start paying attention to what triggers you to reach for the food that you know in your heart is only going to contribute to more pain and struggle, rather than to your joy and happiness. Keep a food journal. See tip number 11, which we will get to. Can help you identify what might be triggering you. I know my biggest triggers are stress, lack of sleep, and social situations. And again, you'll find that with Tanny Raw when you participate in the Raw Reset, that she is a really big one on maintaining a daily journal. And mine's over there, but I can't even reach for it right now. But yeah, a daily journal. And everybody's is a little different in terms of how much they do. Another one, in addition to the urge jar, in addition to my monkey mind, I do the calendar, right? Where I put my stickers honoring myself for what I have committed to. And right now my stickers are largely for making sure I exercise every day, but I also do indicate on them whether or not I stayed clean with my food. And I kind of use my journal for that as well. But I was really proud, and I forgot to even show it to you guys, but here was my entire month of April. And yay me, I absolutely got in my exercise every day. The food wobbled a teeny bit, but here we are in May, and I started and I'm on my way. So those are just all a bunch of really hot tips. And I decided, because these are so involved, that I'm only going to do 3. So I'm going to extend this. And this is just part 1 of 5, and that's okay. So again, let me tell you the name of this, because I usually don't share it until the end. This is Happy and Raw, and her name is Laura Dawn. And let me go ahead and just go over those 3 again very quickly, because I interrupted 500 billion times. So I'm just going to cleanly read these to you. Number 1, make a plan and write it down. Planning provides some structure, and when things start to feel out of control, a concrete action plan can and does go a long way towards helping you to get back on track. I usually recommend a 1-week plan, but you can adjust your plan to suit your needs. My plan included several classes I would attend during the upcoming week, including a yoga class and a dance class. I also planned for taking morning walks or a bike ride. Try to make a realistic plan, one that is simple, clear, and not overwhelming. I know I've been out of my routine and not meditating lately, so instead of planning to incorporate 1 hour of meditation in the morning, which would be ideal, I wrote down 10 minutes because it's more realistic considering what I have going on, and it feels less overwhelming to get back into the habit. Number 2, get back into the groove. Personally, I thrive with a routine structure for day-to-day living. Making a plan for the following week and writing it down helps me to focus on getting back into my groove. I notice I do really great when I follow my morning routine. Wake up, meditate, go for a walk or a bike ride, shower, make smoothie, write an article, answer emails, etc. When I have a routine, I spend less time thinking about it and more time actually doing it. And number 3, try to identify trigger foods. What triggers us to eat or overeat can oftentimes be very challenging to detect. There are so many factors that play into our relationship with food, including mindless eating habits, emotional food dependencies, the people we usually eat with, the time of day, the weather outside, to name a few. Try to start paying attention to what triggers you to reach for a food that you know in your heart is only going to contribute to more pain and struggle rather than to your joy and happiness. Keeping a food journal can help you identify what might be triggering you. I know my biggest triggers are stress, lack of sleep, and social situations. I did the whole thing without interrupting. Were you proud? Were you like, dang, Jules is on a roll? Thank you. All right, my friends, like if you like, join us if you haven't. Subscribe. Let me know in the comments below how I may support you. Can you relate to this at all? Know that part 2 will be coming tomorrow. I am honoring myself by getting to bed. All right, it's going to be a teeny bit after 10 because it's already 10 o'clock and I still have to put on my pajamas. I have to brush my teeth and I have to put the bird away and I have to say goodnight to the dogs. But I largely did many things, so many things, right? I walked over 11,000 steps. I did my laps on the track. I did the mass. I did the rosary. I offered up intermittent fasting all day for those suffering in India from the COVID. I was kind to my husband. I was loving with my mom and said our prayers together. I did my Jules Blessed Vegan video. Thank you. I'm so glad that counts. I did many things right. And now I have got to shut it down and do that last promise to myself. And until we talk again, best of all, know that you're blessed.